All right, welcome to another episode of Vibration Translation. This is number 4, I believe. This is with Richard Blankenship. He is the host of Luminal Mind here on YouTube. And Luminal Mind is a channel about opening up minds and guiding us along our path of self-mastery. And it's dedicated to being a portal towards an extraordinary version of ourselves. I got some of that from your description over there. And Richard has a beautiful and curious mind, and I have very much so enjoyed interacting with him in the interaction space and collaborating and making these videos, and I hope you will as well, the viewer. And we've made another one of these episodes on Richard's channel, Luminal Mind, so I'll be linking that below once it is up and ready to go. Would you like to add anything to this?
No, that was absolutely beautiful. And thank you so much for having me on here. Thank you for just your openness and willingness to have a conversation on display. But yeah, thank
Yes.
you so much.
Yes, of course. So Luminal Mind is the name of your channel. So I want to ask first, why Luminal Mind and what is the luminal space as you would define it?
Okay, that's a wonderful question. It actually originated from a word that's called liminal. So if you change the U to an I, you get a word that's actually a real word in the dictionary. And liminal is the liminal space. You'll hear people talking about this over the last
Right.
couple years. It's a boundary condition. It's a threshold. It's like the space in between. One of the examples I like to use to explain that is a civilian before they join the military. They go into boot camp, they get retrained, reprogrammed, and then on the other side of that, so the boot camp is the liminal space. On the other side of that, all of a sudden you're military personnel. You're no longer a civilian. But basically, this whole idea that really our lives are just in constant transitions. We're constantly moving through transitions. And in this time in our world, most people are going through 5, 10, even more really pivotal transitions in their life. And so the aspect of luminal is going to actually relate to like light. There's a term called lumens that actually measures the intensity of light. And so luminal is not really a real word, but I've connected that up also to like lucid. So this idea of lucid dreams or even being lucid awake in our real day-to-day mundane existence. And so I have this term called lucidicism as opposed to mysticism. And the reason I do that is I love the mystical states, I love the mystical literature. And the luminal mind idea is really about, as simply as I can put it, is getting beyond the threshold, beyond those challenges and obstacles, our self limiting beliefs, and landing on the luminal landing strip where we actually are like safe and we have a new space, whether that's a heart opening or just being open minded to new possibilities. So that's pretty good description in the short interim.
Whoa, that's really cool. So you combine liminal, lumens, and lucidicism, and then you do this whole thing with consciously upgrading language, which I'm hopefully getting to later, because I'm really excited about your process and how that intercepts with your spiritual journey and how it benefits you. So when you were describing liminal, that's kind of like the space in between, right? Like the space in between something, the transitionary space. So are you trying to say with luminal that liminal space, what are you trying to say about liminal that isn't full within liminal that needs luminal?
It's landing on the other side of it with your sanity intact, where we're actually moving towards growth and expansion mindsets. Just like the idea of like when the light dawns, the aha moment, capturing the essence of this scintillating cognition is what I like to call it. These inner worlds, the dimensions of ourselves, and getting more in tune with that. And as we transition from high school to college to the real world to career for 20 years, career changes, moving from one state to the other, finding an orientation in the mind that allows those transitions to navigate those transitions with a little bit more grace and precision.
Okay, beautiful. And now I understand it. Thank you for that explanation. It's like it reminds me of concepts of the power of now, like from Eckhart Tolle, like some kind of space that anchors you, some kind of way of being, some kind of integration that really anchors you to know that you are safe and supported as you continue through your journey, which is going to continuously have those transitions. All right, beautiful.
Absolutely wonderful.
I got it. Okay. I got it. All right. So, also, another thing that you're super into that I would love to understand, but I've tried looking on your videos, but it had a lot of math in it, which is Tetryonics. So, Tetryonics, so you're deep into this. And I would love to understand, first of all, how did you get into the triangles? And second of all, what is it all about? How does it relate to spiritual mastery, like spiritual path, or just the universe? What does it mean?
Okay, so I like to be very clear here that the work of Tetryonics is the brainchild of Kelvin Abraham, and he came into my field of view December 12th, 2012 was the first day that I ever saw the Tetrayonic materials. And this individual lives in Australia, and he was a communications expert in telecommunications and circuits and just energy. He was fascinated with Tesla, and he was having this conversation with his son one day about the pyramids, and he just had this amazing insight. And he flushed that insight out into over 5,000 pages of articulate data that's going to upgrade, has the potential to really change the way we understand quantum mechanics, energy in general, transformations of energies from solid to immaterial. And so he uses one shape and one shape alone, the triangle. Yes. And so we're getting a new angle on the word
Angle?
angle. And so the important thing to understand, the real simple way I can explain this is that
Triangle. Okay.
we are, we are using geometry. Okay, so the universe is geometric in reality, and then it's mathematical in expression. And so he's put a really fine-tooth point on this idea of immaterial fields versus the rigid physical matter fields. And we are definitely going against the grain of modern academia. And you know how difficult that is when you're challenging norms and conventions. And so I've been working with Kelvin one on one to explain the triangles to people in a quantum mechanics realm. And so we literally go against Einstein in some ways. We try to upgrade the understanding. And the deeper I've gotten into this, you get a BS detector. You can tell when someone's trying to explain something to you and you're like, oh, that's kind of wrong. And we do a lot of calling out on people, like not in a bad way, not in a negative way, but as an attempt to seek patterns in the quantum energy domain in order to destroy illusions. And so the main insight for Tetryonics is that energy is a shape. And from that shape, you can study the patterns, you can count the quantities, and when you start drawing triangles on a piece of paper, you realize that the equilateral grid, that's what we call the tessellated fields, they all add up to square numbered quantities. So if you can understand the idea of 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, the square numbers, we're not using square boxed in geometries. We're using the equilateral tile, and we basically have something that's really amazing. I'm absolutely passionate about it. Kelvin gave me this little triangle when we met face to face. I was invited as a student of Tetrayonics. I've been invited to the Tesla Tech Extraordinary Conference 2 different times, 7 years apart. We just did that last year, and the first presentation was in 2016. And Kelvin flew over from Australia to the United States for the first time. We got to hang out for about 3 or 4 days. One of the most magical moments, meetings of the mind that I've ever had. I'm so grateful to Kelvin for keep taking me under his wing and really just kind of he needed to guide me through, and I've got much more to go. I'm more of an ambassador to the knowledge, just sharing the fact that this information is available today. It takes work, it takes study, but I can explain the first, what I would call the first like 5 or 7 initiations. And everybody has their own mental model. But what we basically say is that geometry is king. As long as you have the geometric foundation, you have more insight than anything else. There's 3 ways to look at anything. You can describe anything visually, verbally, or mathematically. We do visual first with the geometry, then we layer the language of mathematics for those who enjoy the language of mathematics, and then we'd use our best English to explain it. So geometry is king, math is okay, and English basically sucks. So you need the imagery to
Mm-hmm.
understand what's really going on. I'll just finish off real quick. Um, the idea is that there's a quantum telescope for the quantum world, and we really are changing the assumptions of physics. There have been a few major errors in the study of science and natural law that have led to a multitude of consequences. But if we can correct a few of those assumptions, we're putting humanity on a new track.
Okay, where can people get more information about that? I know you make videos about that. Are there specific videos you would recommend? I can link them down below. You can send them over to me. Does he have a website about Tetryonics?
Well, he does. It's Tetryonics.com, but to
Okay,
be
easy.
perfectly honest, it's difficult to keep that project open and alive. He gets a lot of DDoS attacks and things, so it sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
What's a DDoS attack?
It's like a hacker that pings your network so many times it just shuts your website down. It overloads traffic in a small compressed time frame. Basically, it's just saying there are people in the world that don't want this information really readily available. But yeah, he's got a YouTube channel. He has,
Okay.
I mean, hundreds of hours. And then I'll link you to another site that's the Science of Life website. I don't have the URL just off the top of my head,
Yeah, we'll
but
be
I want to
linking it
mention
down.
that because the gentleman he went through a whole bunch of interviews with this gentleman, and the interviews are almost basically transcribed, and you can download the audio. I always recommend listening to him for a good period of time. If you're interested in this stuff, you do have to saturate yourself on the information and let the new models absorb into your brain. And I realize that people are skeptical of new information and new knowledge, but I could go into a more mystical landscape here. But just in the practicalities, it really does seem, and nobody has given me in 12 years, since 2012, nobody has given me anything that would usurp or disrupt what Kelvin is doing. He has got something. It may not be the entire full picture, but without this part of the puzzle, we're kind of stalling out our progress in the scientific endeavors.
So it's like are you saying it's kind of like a missing link to the quantum world?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, I'm gonna need to check it more out then. You've
Yeah, I
definitely
invite
intrigued me
everybody
by
to
the way you just described that.
Yeah, I invite
Wow,
everybody to check it out. We do make ourselves available for questions as much as possible. So,
that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, I wanted to move on. So you began a is it called a self or a spiritual mastery series on your channel where you're reading this anonymous guy's transcript that you found, I don't know how many years ago, and it has a bunch of esoteric concepts, but it's brought down into this practical sense from what I've gathered. And so I wanted to know what sprouted your interest in the spiritual and in the realms of self-mastery, and how do you correlate spiritual and self-mastery?
all right. Well, let me start with the spiritual side. Like, I try to simplify things as much as possible. You can always use a lot of complex words, and I enjoy using complex word structures and being creative with the language. But on the other side of that, I realize the value of the simplistic nature. And as far as the spiritual aspect, basically is this idea that we are more than the physical body. And I've had many mystical experiences and visions and like little moments of poking in and kind of seeing through the veil. And I say all this all the time. It only takes a moment to experience eternity. So if you can just move at any point in your life, if you're open and honest with yourself, if you have these aha moments that open the wonder of yourself, it really only takes just a small moment to get into that. And I've had some of these things happen to me when I was a child. I would have spontaneous, I don't know what you want to call them. I label this stuff in my own way. So I would call this an OBE, where I'm literally at night, maybe when I was 8 to 12 years old, I would just spontaneously escape my body during dream and I would go play in my neighborhood. I would fly over the houses and through windows and go to the park down the street and come back. And it felt always just felt like my consciousness detached. It morphed it out of my physical attachment body and moved into this etherical realm. But in this particular experiences, I feel like my consciousness is still moving about in the actual 3D world. And so I differentiate that experience from an astral projection or a lucid dream where you're not in the material world, you're in the dreamscape. And so there's like a delineation of experience, a spectrum of experience that I've kind of tried my best to define for myself. And then I look at all the other materials that other people have written. Dr. Robert Monroe of Monroe.org or
Yes,
MonroeInstitute.org.
Institute, I think.
So I was listening to his hemisync binaural. It's basically you put two different frequencies in each hemisphere of the brain, headphones only, and it trains your mind into these focus levels. And I worked on focus level, I don't remember the numbers, 9, 10, 12, for about a year. And then I had my spontaneous OBE or out of body, I don't know what to call it, the vision that I sent you, the
The
heavenly vision.
2002?
Yes,
2002?
exactly that. And so I woke up and the world around me was basically me standing, felt like standing on another planetary body, looking out into the star field, but reality was painted by a multicolored stars, not just looking up and seeing little tiny white pinpoints of light every so often. It's like God had filled the entire space with those stars to create every single representation of my bedroom, my grandmother's quilt. So I did a 180 flip like a magnet. I woke up looking at my big toe underneath my grandma's blanket, and the window was on the other side, and I recognized probably 20 seconds, 30 seconds. But my consciousness was detached from my head space. It moved down to my toes, and then I drifted off. And so all these different nuanced experiences, I try my best to just archive what that is. And what was the other part? The spiritual aspect. Oh, the
And
attaining
the
spiritual
self-mastery.
mastery.
Spiritual
Right.
mastery, self-mastery, yeah.
I'm just a constant student. I know that my life is not where I want it to be. I readily admit that and acknowledge that I'm trying to move my dimensional understanding and interactions with the world forward through whatever means possible. I've never been so open-minded to the unknown, the uncertainty of life, the new opportunities that are around every corner. And I came across that post in Tumblr, probably around 2014. And it was absolutely every post was anonymous. I've tried to go back and look for it. I can't find it.
It's the spiritual mastery series. And
Yes,
Tumblr posts.
absolutely. And it
Wow.
was 14 long posts. And I'm just reading all 14 posts, 70 pages long. I've got 48 more pages to read. So there's a lot more left in that. And it's just, I'm a student of the things I read. I'm studying this just like I'm trying to share it with everybody else to study. And so those two things are connected because I've had these spiritual experiences, but I've never had any formal training. I don't really want formal training. I follow my intuition and my heart space to really understand like not every teaching is for everybody and not everybody is ready for every teaching. And you've spoken to this on your channel that like sometimes we're just going to look a little weird. We're going to not, people aren't going to understand us. But here we are 20 years later for me, and a lot of people are talking about Robert Monroe's gateway experience. I wish I had started talking about it more at those earlier stages, but I've only opened up, kind of come out of the closet in my spiritual visionary mind. I'm starting to share that with more and more people. So just having this opportunity to even like express in words some of the things I've had, it's been great. It's been awesome and activating. So wonderful question. I hope I covered it.
Yes. I wanted to also ask what you kind of covered it, but what specifically grasped you to read the spiritual mastery posts?
Well, I've just been having this fascination with the voice and my vocal, trying to awaken that potential within myself for many, many years. And I've just found great joy in a meditative space when I'm reading other people's material. There's even a reading on um, the astral world, its phenomena. There's like a 5 or 6 part series, another playlist. And I read that first when I
Is
first
that
got.
is that Robert Monroe or
Oh no, I couldn't
no?
even pronounce the
You
author's
couldn't.
name at
Okay.
this point, but it's on my channel. It's my first reading through about a
Okay.
90-page book about the 7 layers, the 7 subplanes of existence, because these are things I investigate. I've defined them for myself, but I really enjoy hearing swamis and yogi and mystical writings that are so abstract but so targeted to what I've actually experienced. And so my impetus is sometimes I don't get into the creative space where I can create my own thoughts. Think about this a lot. Like how many thoughts are our own, or versus how many thoughts are just parroting all of the knowledge that we absorb, the diet of ideas that we spend time on. And so sometimes I'm just feeling like I'm not in that perfect space. And so why can't I still use my voice, get into a meditative frame of mind? When I read these things, I come out of it in a heightened state. It's much like playing music. I'm a drummer, and that's a meditative experience. It's a healing experience. And so really my motivation for reading this is, one, I feel like I've kept it a secret for too long. I'm sharing more and more and more about my studies and my pathway with people. And this is just the most concise, simplified version. Like, I don't want the simplicity of that reading to just to cause any concern. Like, there's so many nuances that I'm learning through it, and I listen to it 3 times before it even goes live because I've got to edit it. And so it's just this way of staying inside of a mystical study for myself.
And with the topic of sharing, you kind of said this, but what do you feel like the act of sharing does for you? Because I know I know it does a lot for me. Like even like sharing like reading the readings that you have and just with the camera, with the audience, with whoever shows up.
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, let's simplify it with cliche moment for a second. I mean, sharing is caring, and I know that's cliche, but really, I'm trying to ripple my wavelengths through the world. I realize and I acknowledge that we are not separate beings. So we can talk about the I as you, the others as self, the illusion of separateness. Yeah, I'm my own person with my own locomotive abilities. I can walk across the room at my own decision. But ultimately, every single thing I do influences the world in some way. And I'm trying to leave the world a better place. I'm not trying to change the world or heal the world. I'm just trying to give people um, enough new concepts. Because really, if you're going to change your life or change the fabric of the planet, we need new concepts. Consciously upgrading the language, that type of thing, where it's literally a motivating force that's attempting to kind of change the landscape of our current conditions on a global scale. But it starts on the individual level, and I'm trying to be a demonstration of that. I want my channel to have progress. I think even just today, I mean, I look at the clock, I'm like, how much have we accomplished just today? And I'm having a great time with it. And I'm not trying, I intend to just keep that momentum moving forward, but not just for myself. What's a YouTube channel if not to share it with the world?
Yeah, and it's beautiful. It showcases also the power of the individual, as in fully being ourselves, and as in just the very nature of that and sharing of ourselves is another puzzle piece to this whole one thing that we are in.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
say something here. Just getting in touch with that vulnerability to share has been part of my healing journey. Really being comfortable in my own skin. Another thing I know we have in common is a little bit of uh, difficulty with anxiety. And so the only thing that's really ever helped my anxiety, not medication, I tried that. Not plant medicine, I tried that. Cannabis will amplify any anxiety you've got, just about.
Yes.
And I experienced that. I've heard you talk about that. So another connective harmonic alignment there. I know exactly what you mean, and kind of lost my train of thought there. But the idea of being vulnerable in the space, it activates me, it pushes me over the edge. I want to live a life that's not comfortable, really, because any spiritual master that's accomplished any great feat basically did that through challenge, despair, all kinds of obstacles, going through the darkness. And I mean, that's just my life. It's just
That's where
what's
you
happened.
discover that you are the light within that unknown darkness. Yeah. That you, somehow being able to again connect with that luminal space within.
You've got it. You totally got it.
All right. We kind of skipped around everything that I wanted to mention, but you were mentioning consciously upgrading language. So, some other ones besides lucidicism that I've taken note of is intronauts. Instead of astronauts, you did intronauts. And then software, hardware. Then we have aware. And then we have imaginaritism. Would you like to speak about any of these and your process of coming up and how they benefit you, and any other ones you'd like to mention?
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I think the last one you were trying to say there was the imaginariums of our mind.
Oh,
And so that's a
imaginariums.
combination of the imagination and an aquarium. So just having these ideas floating around and under the water's surface or even clouds. I like to identify my thoughts with clouds, just the observer effect, not attaching to the thoughts, letting the thoughts move through. Let's see, lucidicism versus mysticism. I can speak to that again just real quick. The idea of mysticism is great. I love it, but it's so abstract. It is like at its fundamental level, people trying to actually have a direct encounter with the ineffable wholeness. But the word mist is in there, and mist kind of conceals and fogs the horizon. Now, it's not always a bad thing, but I just do weird tricks with my thought process. Thoughts are things, thoughts are powerful. What was the other ones that you mentioned?
You had aware.
Okay, allware. I love this one. So yeah, the softwares are programming, the immaterial thoughts, the patterning that we've developed. The hardware is the physical body, the physiology, and then the aha eureka moments. But not just awareness, but the aha, aware as a third component to software, hardware, allware. And I'm always talking triangles. I always try to, I'm telling you, it's a part of my philosophy of life. I feel like we're triangular beings, body, mind, spirit. We can talk about that. I really try to get to a fine-tooth understanding of what all those things are, what they mean to me. When I say spirit, it doesn't mean soul to me. Those are two different things. And I try to really mince words. I love the language, and anything I can create, I'll create words, intro not. Like, I grew up, what do you want to do when you grow up? Everybody wants to be an astronaut. Everybody wants to leave the planet when they're a little kid. Like, there's something not right here. I want to go explore the universe. But I just had a realization there's a band called Intronaut. But even before I knew that, I'm just trying to come up with these words. I hear people say instead of understanding, overstanding, or understanding, that ability to consciously create a thought form that works for you. Like, I encourage other people. Part of my luminal minding strategies, the work that I'm actually working on is a book at some point. I'm not forcing that book. It comes in waves and chunks, and it's been 10-year project. I have no idea when it's going to be done. It's one of those things that is just done when it's done. But I encourage people to try to capture the sublimated thoughts, the aware moments where you're just like, holy crap, I feel so good, or I'm so excited, or wow, I just had a thought right there that I've never heard anybody else really communicate. I'm going to write that down. Or when you go into a meditation and you get a lesson, I really encourage people to try to journal that down, capture it, bring the immaterial bring that immaterial essence, that lesson into physical reality. And if I may, yeah, and if I may, I've got my first Luminal Mind quote. So this started the entire Luminal Mind quote, and it's kind of different, but I don't feel like I wrote this. Somewhere in the sacred silence, this soul seeks to sojourn to splendid soundscapes. Basking in the shifting sands, my solitude stands with all of you in resplendent light.
Sounds pretty psychedelic.
Yeah, and that's just one example. I'm writing a whole book of these little things dispersed throughout it while I'm encouraging others to create their own luminal minded journal where it's like, I want to archive my improvement, my articulation, my levels to communicate. It's just this constant blooming and constant growth process that you know all too well.
Yeah, I see how you feel like it doesn't maybe sound like you, but it's like it sounds like you though. You know? I feel similarly, but I like what you are doing with that. We are doing. We're not trying, we are doing, right? That's our thing. We're not trying anymore. We just are doing, okay? And it reminds me of my concept of that interactive space we talked about over on your interview. Yeah, like basically inspiring people to become confident in their own experiences and their own realizations and their own connections with that space as it comes uniquely through each perspective, and each perspective again is a part of the puzzle, and to share that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
beautiful. I'm excited for the book. All right, another thing I wanted to say before we cut off was when you said the intronaut and the astronaut, you said the astronauts explore the universe, but the intronauts also explore the universe. You know, the universe. Well, they explore the universe. Okay, I just thought, because I started laughing about that, so I thought that was really funny, and I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I mean, there's other things we can talk about the words. I like the idea of anagrams, and what that means is two words that have the same spelling but are different words. And
Right.
my two favorite examples, you've seen one of them. Earth is heart.
Yes.
Same letters. So the earth heart is something that I like to think about a lot on my meditations. And then another great one that I love is listen equals silent. And in order to listen, you best be silent.
Yeah. Open, empty, silence in the mind. I'm trying to do that here. Trying my best. Trying. Whoa. What is this? People are gonna think you're part of the Illuminati.
I'm Illuminati confirmed. Whatever you want to think, whatever judgments come my way, it's okay. I can back up my triangles.
You can back up your triangles?
Yeah, I can back up the philosophy set. I can teach you
Oh,
why the
back up. Okay.
triangles, I can actually back it up.
I thought you meant back up like back away. Like, you know, the double meaning. So I was like, all right. Well, you just mentioned meditation. So in your interview with Reagan on your channel, you mentioned this metaphoric visualization of the placid waters. Can you go more into depth about that? Because I thought it was beautiful how you were talking about the mirrored stillness in the lake you had in the vision.
I love it. Oh man, I hadn't thought about that in a while. Wow. So this is definitely one of those aha moments that I had in one of my meditations. And ever since I had the one aha moment, this is really a great anchor point for me. So if it can help me, I hope that it can help somebody else. But I found myself meditating probably 5 hours a day at one point. Maybe not every day, but a lot of time getting used to that whole space. And occasionally you enter into a new sphere of understanding or new um, scenery. So I woke up I was in a meditation and I just woke up in this new scenery where the land was flat pretty much. And there was a little pond, not a large body of water, but just a pond of my thoughts. And every time I had a thought, there would be a ripple, there would be a disturbance in the field. And through some extra focus and effort, I was able to remove all thoughts. And then the water turned into a perfect mirror, no movement, just a glass sheet mirror. And at that point, the heavens reflected against the earth, as above, so below. And it's just absolutely, remember that. I would consider that kind of a mystical moment, even though it was probably less than 5 minutes. Again, I come back to this idea, it only takes a moment to experience eternity. And that was one of those. And Maya's talking about the interview with Transforming the Darkness channel. Highly recommend Reagan. She's just an amazing person. I can't say anything here that I haven't already said on that video, but thank you. That was an amazing question.
Yeah, I'll definitely link that interview down below as well. It was awesome. I watched it. So we got into your 2002 Heavenly Vision, and just some notes I took about that is that you went into a state of timelessness within like 30 seconds of real world time, but it felt like an eternity, a timelessness. And you also felt like this real life world that when you woke back up, it was a Play-Doh reality, and that you didn't have, really after processing that vision, you didn't have a fear of death after that. Could you expand on these points?
Yeah, absolutely. So that experience was absolutely kind of out of nowhere. After let's see, let me go back to 2002.
It's just a moment away.
Yeah, no, I remember exactly where I was. I was in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I remember what my rent was. I was paying $187 a month in rent, if you can
By
believe that.
yourself?
I had a roommate and we were
Oh, wow.
bandmates. So my bass player and I were living together.
Wow.
And every day after work, I would go listen to my Hemi-Sync tapes from Robert Monroe. And this moment of timelessness, it may have been about a minute. It's hard to know when you're having those. It was not much. Like in this physical world, my roommate probably went to the bathroom and came back, and I was out of the experience. But the directed question here is the okay, timelessness, and then what was the other part?
The
Uh,
Play-Doh reality and
yeah,
the
yeah,
fear
okay.
of death.
Perfectly, perfect. Thank you. Had to get my mind back in there. But yeah, after you see something like what I would say a heavenly vision, if you actually wake up in that reality, it really is going to change your idea of what this physical body is. I was still Richard in that experience, but my body was here and my Richard essence was somewhere else.
And can I
And it was,
ask so I understand these audios are on the Monroe Institute website. So when you were doing these, I guess you don't have to explain the whole meditation, but
Mhm.
when was there a shift that you were able to get into this like other reality? Like what you were able to like literally like almost as if you're physically waking up in a different space, but you're
Mhm.
still like real Richard is laying down. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so the first thought I had on that was, I mean, why be scared of death? It's just like dreaming, really. I mean, we hear this all the time, but I've got this kind of interesting personal experience on it. You know, when you wake up from a dream, you're not grieving the dream, you waking up into another reality. And if we're going to look at things in cyclical nature and understand energy is only transforming from one form to the other, you can't create it, you can't destroy it. It just moves from this form to another. There's a transition, a liminal space, and then the luminal space on the other side of it is your spirit being free in a whole nother domain. Now, I'm not claiming to know exactly what every single nuance detail is there, but those quick moments, and I've had many, probably a dozen or so, if I were to just sit down and count each and every one of them. But yeah, when I came back to this reality, it literally felt like I was in a claymation universe or a claymation. Everything felt dirty. Everything felt gritty. To kind of bring in a Bible thing, like we are all filthy rags. That's kind of a biblical uh, idea. And I just felt that all over me. And that's where my spiritual awakening kind of led to other people in my life thinking I was crazy. And so I wasn't mature enough to be able to kind of keep my experiences to myself. I shared them willingly with people at the time. And my parents wanted me on medications. My parents wanted me on therapy. I kept telling them that this world is not real. This world is not what you think. Yes, we are here. We get to wake up every day. I can write you a letter and put it in the mail, and it will arrive at your doorstep. I mean, that's like, there's a solidity here. I mean, the fact that we have an address means that like there's a continuity of physical experience, but it is temporary. And as a spiritual being moving through the physical reality, that experience was really the first to clue me in. Before that, I hadn't had much of a spiritual experience other than maybe my intuition or the fact that I'm like a highly sensitive person. I can kind of feel someone's emotions in the room, and I analyze a situation from an observer perspective. And I think maybe that mindset trained me enough in observational awareness to have those experiences. I don't think without those prior meditative practices, without going through kind of that spiritual work, I don't think that would have happened. Now, yes, I was using tools. I was using software, basically scientific information that this gentleman has created. And so I know this topic can be a little bit hit or miss with people, but I went through the tapes, and about 6 months to a year in, every single week, not every day, but just going back to the material, working through each disc, one disc at a time. It teaches you how to interact with non-physical reality, one step at a time. And that's what I need. I need a step-by-step instruction manual. Otherwise I'm reading 27 books and I'm not really sure what my first goal is. I distribute my thinking out in so many different ways, but over the years I come back to like a singular topic, and I'll stick with discipline. I'll re-amplify my own inner discipline, and then I'll stick to a program. And every time I've done that, I've just had these little breakthroughs along the way. And it is a process. I realize there's no end. I'm not going to reach the goals. If you're walking towards the horizon line, the horizon is always receding away from you. So as we reach our goals, the goalpost moves.
Wow, okay. So a lot came up there. So as there are a lot of books and a lot of things, you said that you kind of stuck to one-ish at a time. So why did you resonate with Robert Monroe, or how did you know that that was the path to really dedicate yourself to with him?
Well, I mean, I actually bought his first book, one of his first books called Journeys Out of the Body. And so I read that book from start to finish. And then I bought the second book and the third book and the fourth book. And somewhere as I was reading through his material, very focused, not looking at other material, just every night before bed, this book, or every lunch break, this book. I've had a lot of trouble getting through books from cover to cover, but I'll tell you, I had no problem reading his books from cover to cover. And so I take note of those things. And just somewhere in there, I went online and I bought the whole it's called the Gateway Experience. Again, I can't remember all of the focus levels that it goes into, but I think it gets you through focus level 10, 12, and then maybe some teens up to focus level 21, I think. I'm out of practice with that actual um, hierarchy of his focus levels, but it's a deepening effect. You have to start with session one, move through for a couple of weeks or a month, and then move to second CD. Now there's some other stuff on YouTube. I don't know if it's really him I sync or if it's really the Gateway Experience, but there are Robert Monroe YouTube videos that people can kind of experiment with to get in touch with this manipulation of non-physical reality.
That's awesome. And another thing that came up when you were sharing was about the discernment of who to share with. Yeah, so because I remember when I was in high school and I was getting into all this spiritual stuff, I'm like, Mom, Dad, look. And they're like, they're brainwashing you. We need to remove YouTube from her. And I'm like, no. And that created like more of like a trauma for being misunderstood. Yeah.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I didn't know what else to do but to share that experience and let people know I was going through it. I thought that was probably the safe bet. I felt like if I kept it a secret, I wasn't living an authentic life. But as I've gone older and gained in maturity, I really wish I had had somebody guiding me through that so that I wasn't just telling everybody and making everybody worried and freaked out. Because really, I was having the time of my life. But I couldn't explain that to anybody else. Nobody else understood. I mean, really. And then after I had kind of a negative experience with that sharing, I did shut down. I stopped sharing. And it really probably wasn't until about 2016, maybe 17, before I opened up actually dialoguing with people and letting them know, look, man, this earth realm is not what you think. It's so temporary. We need to value every last moment. The now moment is all we have. I don't really think that the past exists. I don't really think that the future exists. There's just this ever present moment of waveform interacting with other waveforms. Some of it comes in and solidifies so that it's rigid, and there are spiritual energies that you just can't see with your physical senses. And that's what science is for. Science is designed to bring those immaterial forces into perception, into your human perception. And the whole idea to that is that you can reproduce an experiment anywhere on the planet and you should be able to get the same results. And so, as a scientist, a mathematician, in my schooling days, I've just gravitated to those concepts. But really, my main focus is just a spiritual life, is really just growing myself, helping others to grow, supporting and encouraging. I feel like I have been given a gift of divine encouragement. I can't really tell you how many times I've had interactions with perfect strangers, and you can just tell that you had a positive influence in less than 30 seconds with somebody. And so just like my visionary experiences might only be 30 seconds long, you can really have an impact on somebody that you don't even know in under 30 seconds.
I like that. So there's a couple things there. And it's like living intentionally, right? Bringing your best self, your just your embodied self in the moment of now, to each moment, regardless of what other people may say or think. And even if people on the outside don't respond positively to something, you've still affected them, you know what I mean? Because sometimes people don't want to admit that you've actually they don't show it. They're not, I've experienced that at least. And also there's this kind of loneliness a lot of people talk about on the spiritual path, where it's like, okay, you're opened up to this world, it's cracked open to you in some way, and it's like crazy in some way, but nobody around you understands. I've had that, yeah.
100%. And that's changed.
And it's almost like I don't know, I guess everybody's path is different, right? But it seems to be an overlapping theme on many people's spiritual journeys of like this aloneness, this needing to go inwards. Maybe this creates more space to go inwards, to be that alone. I'm not sure. But there's a purpose for that phase, at least for some people, because I've definitely had that.
Yeah, I mean, I was absolutely loner for so many years, and not because I chose it. I was actually trying to go the opposite. But then I learned to back off, and then as the internet's evolved more and more people are sharing. It opened me up to sharing. And so I don't feel lonely in the spiritual path anymore. I live alone. I'm just a single guy living with my two dogs, and the last 3 years have really been kind of prolonged spiritual retreat for me. I do ebb and flow into moments of depression and moments of little activity. Something I've learned recently is that when I'm sleeping a lot, I'm just trying to escape the world. There's just something not I'm not comfortable with, or that I can't control, or I somehow created a belief that I'm just not happy with certain things in the world. And when I'm sleeping a lot, that is an indication that I'm just trying to escape. And in recent months, I've stopped taking naps. Let's see what other changes. I was going to talk about this in my interview with you, but I've overcome coffee, one of the strongest addictions I've had in my entire life. I'm off of coffee for like 6 weeks. Now, on the other side of that, I'm still drinking caffeine, but in different quantities, different substance in that regard. But as far as that was a huge breakthrough for me. I mean, as simple as it sounds, I want to encourage people to share their small wins with the community, with your friends and family. Like, you might not think it's a big deal, but even something as simple as me quitting coffee is a huge deal. It shows me what I'm capable of. It reinforces the power of choice.
Yeah. Because addiction is a pendulum.
Okay. Yeah.
Go
Please
ahead.
go
Sorry. I
on.
just wanted
Well,
to
I was
say
gonna,
that. It just came
yeah,
out. Excuse me.
no, that's okay. That's okay. I was gonna ask what those pendulums really mean to you.
So I use the words visceral and intense and tangible a lot on my channel because okay, yeah, addiction is like in the mind, in the body experience. You can't really like, I mean, you can see that somebody's addicted, but you can't really tell what upon meeting. Like it's in them. You can't really feel what that is inside their experience. And so with addiction being such an intense experience and an intense what I would describe as the pendulum from the reality transferring. So how I understand the pendulum concept, it's the beginning of a momentum of a certain emotional state that turns into, it can be intense as your entire reality turning into that one emotional state and there's nothing else that you can see.
Okay.
So that's the concept of, it's like it pendulums you into a fullness of that experience of, for example, addiction, worry, anxiety, fear. Something, I mean, I look at it as something, I guess, negative, but it could be I guess you could think of it as a positive pendulum of joy that you can keep building up upon, a momentum, right? The
Yeah.
pendulum
Well,
works on the momentum that you put into it.
yeah.
But
And I'll
yeah,
talk about from my
continue.
perspective. Yeah, I want to add. The reason I asked you that is so I can add to what you just said. But that was excellent. Just was trying to get a nugget of your
Yeah.
understanding there.
And thank you for
But
asking so I could clarify for myself also
yeah,
in words.
no, this is the power of discourse.
Yeah.
And so let me kind of get synced in here because I've got some really interesting things about pendulums happening in my life. And so just at a basic level, a pendulum has one point of fulcrum at the top, generally speaking, in its simplest terms, and you have a weight at the bottom. Gravity is just at 0 point, basically at equilibrium, there's no movement. But when you add a force, a line of force, the pendulum oscillates. It moves one direction, gravity takes over. But when the pendulum stops, it's literally weightless for a moment. And then it
Mm.
reverses. And then the periodic motion of a pendulum, you can mathematically represent it as a sine wave. But really, all that sine wave is telling you is when is it on this side and when is it on that side. You can complicate these simple observations with math all you want, but I like to go back to the visual image to really clarify for people. But the periodic motion of a pendulum is dependent on the mass at the bottom and the length of the pendulum string. And no matter how big the swing or how small the swing, the duration of time from point A to point B is always the same. It's constant. And so things like that remind me that there is a natural order to this physical reality. I have a belief that we can know what that is. I have a opinion that we can upgrade that set of ideas. We can use the triangles to get there. But in another creative realm, I've been inventing pendulum machines, and so I have a conical pendulum. I'll maybe link you to the video if you want to see it, but there's this weird experiment that I have where I have my regular pendulum hanging out really long, and then I've got a second pendulum that's a little bit shorter and different mass, and I swing it, and it does this revolving circle for like 10 minutes. And then it gets to the bottom when the string is all wound up against the other string, and then it reverses momentums and it goes the other direction. And it's a meditative, contemplative device that has been so valuable to me. And I created it out of nothing. I was just thinking one day, like, how can I use gravity and like a a kinetic a kinetic sculpture as a contemplative meditative device? I like to meditate for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. So I've created all these varieties of conical pendulums to swing in my room, and it lets me know when my meditation is over. It gives me a point of
Whoa.
focus, and I love it. And so that's why I'm asking you about pendulums.
Whoa. That takes just looking into a candle flame as a focus to like a whole different realm. So I haven't been thinking of, like, I mean, I know what a physical pendulum looks like, but I haven't been thinking of it in the way you've been thinking of it. So it made me just kind of take some integration of how could that be applied in the emotional sense too. Yeah, food for thought.
Yeah,
I have to think about
absolutely.
that one.
No, I mean, that's been a 2 year, 3 year project. It started off slow, started off almost by accident. I went through prototypes, and I'll send you a video after we get done actually interviewing here where you can actually get a really closer look at what I'm saying. I know it's abstract to explain it, but there are some videos on my channel that actually show it in one form or another.
Awesome. Let's go. I have two more questions. Let's see if we can fit it in. Can you reflect on the experience of feeling the need to chase mystical states after you've had such powerful experiences?
Wow. Oh my goodness. So this has actually been something that I've only recently kind of been thinking about deeply. Um, so yeah, you have these experiences and you want to have them again. I mean, just it's a natural, at least for me, it was a natural thing where I kept chasing the lucid dream state or the astral projected state or the OBE state that I had when I was 7 or 9 or 10 or 12. But what I realize is those things happen, but they're basically spontaneous at this point. Um, and so
So there's some people like that have methods of, right, like Robert Monroe, of getting out of the body. So wow, why do you call it spontaneous? Like in terms of in your own life, it's spontaneous?
yeah, because I've stopped chasing those experiences. And so I'm not inside the
Okay.
practice. So
Yeah.
in order for me to get lucid the first time, I had to read a book on dream yoga. And so they call lucid dreaming the nocturnal meditation. And since we spend 1/3 of our lives asleep, I thought, like, why can't I benefit from the 1/3 of my life where I'm asleep? I'm a sponge for knowledge and information and experience. And so over the years, I'm no longer practicing those lucid dreaming. They would call them reality checking. You
Hmm.
said the fingers trying to go through the hand.
The breathing through the, yeah.
Yeah. Or breathing underwater, or see, that's one of my goals. So I would set up dream goals. Like, okay, tonight when I go to bed, I'm gonna dream that I'm breathing underwater. Or tonight when I go to sleep, I'm gonna look at my hand. Or what was another one? Oh, tonight I'm gonna actually just meditate in my dream. Or hey, I have this blue dream taffy that is a dream psychedelic drug that I regularly encounter in my dreams. Blue dream taffy. It's like this weird thing that you eat in the dream. It's a psychoactive, psychedelic thing. It melts in your mouth very quickly and then it solidifies. Oh, sorry. It
It's okay.
solidifies in your mouth and puts like this weird crusty layer of chalk in your mouth. And then moments later, it just evaporates into this effervescent like scent
So
or
every
perfume
time you experienced it in your dream, it was the same experience
every
of
time.
it?
And yeah, and I get a new nuance every time I experience. Like that's why I can explain it so delicately. Like it has like a Willy Wonka in the Charlie factory type special candy thing that's happening in the dream. And then the vapors overflow and you breathe the vapors in after the chalky substance has disappeared. And so, yeah, so many amazing things. I don't know how we got off on that topic. Oh, the training and the practice. So if I
And
want
the
to go
feeling,
loose,
the need to, yeah, and the like escaping or
right.
finding the
So
spiritual states.
yeah, so for me, I've been chasing those experiences for so long and just wasting my time and getting in loop. Like, I don't need to chase those experiences. They are in there. I remember them. I wrote them down. I journal them. I share them with others, And so now I just let the universe give me whatever vision or experience that the universe really wants me to have. I'm not trying to direct or control that mystical side of my life. However, I'm absolutely open to it. And so that feeling of receptivity for me is the practice now, as opposed to practicing trying to escape the body. I realize that a part of that is me trying to escape the world. And I'm trying to be more embodied. I'm trying to feel more and more comfortable in my skin because of all that anxiety that I've dealt with. And when you're anxious, you just don't feel good in your own skin. And when you see the heaven for a minute and you come back, it feels like it's a claymation universe, a Play-Doh fake reality. And I've just had to get more and more in tune with like, it is what it is. This physical body is really
Yeah.
just, it feels dirty to me in some time, like sometimes, not anymore. But after those initial experiences, that's what it felt like. It just felt gross to be back in the body. It's the best I can explain it.
Hmm. Yeah, I've had like feelings of being like, oh my gosh, why am I on Earth? I don't want to be here, like because it feels so like not familiar, so it's dense, right? I can't just fly from one spot to the other. Unfortunately, over here, there's certain limits to the physical physics, physical
Mhm.
physics. Oh, that was a good one, Maya. um, Yeah, and do you feel like part of like the beginning of you like listening to Robert Monroe, like it's an exploratory process. Like I also did the astral projection just as like, okay, is this actually like, can I actually like see it, the other realm? Like, is it actually real? Like that was part of my process to just be like, okay, let me see if this is real. Let me like try to get out of my body. So do you feel like part of it wasn't escaping, but then it turned into that later?
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's a part of it that feels like escapism, but really, that whole experience was fueled by my creativity and my curiosity to want to know. I've just kept encountering these experiences. I'm like, man, I've never had anything like that. Are you serious? And then all of a sudden, I remembered, like, I had forgotten about my OBE dreams as a kid. That memory had kind of already vanished. And then when I was in college and going to the library, I couldn't even study the topics I'm supposed to study. I'm always going to these
Yeah,
lucid dreaming books, and
that
I'm
was
like,
me. That was me. Yep. 100%.
yeah,
I was like, school, what is that? This is more
yeah.
important, more interesting.
They're teaching you the wrong stuff,
Yeah,
people.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, if elementary school's not going to teach you how to balance your checkbook, do your taxes, and build a house, what the hell are you doing there
No,
for?
exactly. Yep. Yep. And then that's the whole school system thing, but that's a different topic.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you one more question. So, in the spiritual mastery readings you are doing on your channel, check it out, guys, by the way. I don't know. Apparently, saying guys is like weird. Like, hey guys, check it out, guys. I feel like somebody left me a comment that it's like that's so outdated. Stop saying. I mean, I still say it, but guys, there's this golden rule in spiritual mastery. But you said you have this diamond rule. Can you talk about what that is? And did you like develop this on your own or with other people? What are the principles? And upon what life experiences is it based?
Oh man, I wish I had this one prepared. Now I can do pretty good here. Now I would need to read it like word for word. Oh man, I'm gonna see if I can do this. Okay, so the golden rule, obviously everybody knows it. I don't really need to repeat that here, but I got this intuition one day that the golden rule only works if everybody is embodying that rule.
And that's like what treat others as you want to be treated, something like this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So treat others the way you would want to be treated. But then my question is, who am I to know how another person wants to be treated? And so I do these weird things. I'm like, wait a second. I'm really thinking about that, right? So the diamond rule is an outcropping. I did not create it. I consider it collaborative, but actually, the actual tenets to the diamond rule was an attempt to upgrade the language, upgrade the thought process, in that if we can develop a diamond rule, it should work for everyone, even if you're the only person embodying it, as opposed to it only works if everybody is on the same embodied golden rule. And so the diamond rule, I'm going to do the best I can. It won't be perfect, but I can give it to you later. But fearlessly authentic, faithful, and fear free service to others is all that matters. And so it embodies 7 aspects, service being the most important. And that connects to our sharing. I feel like when we are sharing our authentic expression, that we are in service to others. And then whoever's ready for it will respond and resonate. It's not for everybody. And these are the thought experiments that I get a kick out of. And no, I did not create the diamond rule, but I had been looking for the diamond rule for quite some time. And in conversations with a buddy of mine, he sent the diamond rule over. And that he didn't call it the diamond rule. He just ended one of his emails with this little salutation. And I'm like, there it is. That's it.
Do you
And
have
it's
a
a 7.
video on this?
Yeah, I do talk about it somewhere. I'll have to do some research.
Yeah, if you can
And
find it.
yeah, and so the whole premise here is it's 7 layers. It's like forward momentum, okay? Always one step forward, fearlessly. Fearless doesn't mean no fear. It just means taking action despite the fear. Fearlessly authentic, being totally transparent to who we are, being open to expressing with other people, saying difficult things, setting boundaries. Authenticity encompasses a whole bunch of stuff. And then, yeah, that whole piece on service to others. And then the most important aspect, meaning like the only thing that matters. I don't really mean the only thing that matters, but we need to have that as a pillar of our values, like a top value. It's like it helps me to identify a hierarchy of behavior in the world.
Yeah, and so it's important to almost like keep ourselves in check with our, devotion to the path we choose to walk in the world. Yeah, with the intentionality, with our connection with the divine source, God. Yes, all that. That's
Power of
number one.
choice, power of the voice, all of it. Yeah,
Ooh,
absolutely.
power of the choice, power of the, that sounded nice together. All right, we have 1 minute. I think I got through everything. So thank you so much for contacting me. Thanks to YouTube for connecting us randomly. Okay, it's not random though. Okay, totally not random. Too many overlaps. Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing all that you have to bring,
Oh,
and
this
I'm
has just
looking
been
forward
such,
to more.
yeah, I mean, it's been such a joy, really, giving me something to look forward to, turning a corner in my own life, because, I'm so open to new experiences, new relationships, new friendships, new soul tribe members, and we got 1 minute left, but thank you
Less.
so much. It's been amazing to get to know you. I really do kind of hope we can series this out. I kind of hope this is the second interview of many, and we can just play that by ear. But thank you
Yes.
to everybody
Thank you.
watching.
And all the links down below. Check it out. All right. Bye. It's about to like disappear.